outrageous. Please support background checks. Thank you very much.
Gabby Givers today speaking out for gun control at the site in Tucson, where she was critically injured in the mass shooting that killed 6 people. Like me, she believes there are just too many guns in America. My next guest, though, disagrees. Ben Ferguson is a conservative radio host who was the victim of a gun crime himself. He believes the only thing that can stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun. Ben, welcome back.
Good to see you.
So I want to start with this story coming out of Nelson in Georgia, a small town where city councillors have given preliminary approval to something called the Family Protection Act, a proposal requiring, mandating the head of every household to own a firearm.
I don't like it that much, mainly because I think if you don't want to have a gun, I don't want you to have a gun. I do think that when someone kicks in your back door, you better have more than 911 to protect your family.
You wouldn't agree with mandating it?
No, absolutely not, because I don't want, like, if you don't want to have a gun, Lord knows I wouldn't want you to have a gun. I mean, why would I want a human being that's terrified of it, doesn't want to know how to learn how to use it, doesn't want to go practice with it, thinks that it's an object that's going to get up the table and maybe kill somebody? I don't want them to have a gun. I think it's a bad idea.
We have started well. We've started from a point...
We can go downhill from here, though, don't worry.
Let's talk about background checks. When I interviewed Dan Rather the other night, he said a very disturbing thing to me. He said he had talked to Vice President Biden that very day, quietly, who had indicated that they may not even get progress on universal background checks. Do you support universal background checks?
Look, I think it's okay if you want to have background checks on people when they buy and sell a gun. I think it's a waste of time if it's a single-shot .22 rifle, because I think the manpower that goes into that could be used somewhere else. And I also know this. The guy who you just had, the informant, he said background checks will not stop the bad guys from getting the gun. I had a gun to my head, had 2 of them point at me, and they were shot at me. Neither of those guns would have been affected anyway if there was a background check. So I'm in favor of...
But how do you know that?
Because I know that they were already convicted criminals who were already breaking the law by even owning a gun. They were not allowed to own a gun by the laws that are obviously not working now.
Okay, but here's what I would say to that, is that you could almost use that argument for any criminal activity at all.
No,
you could
but
say, look, criminals never obey the law. Of course they don't. They're criminals.
But here's the thing.
But that doesn't mean... Let me finish my point. It doesn't mean you shouldn't try and make it as difficult as possible for criminals to get their hands on firearms.
But this is where I'm in favor of actually having a law that's going to make a real impact and keep people safe. That's what you ultimately want.
What would you do?
And that's what I want. I want there to be laws that actually go after the people that commit the crimes of the guns and go after people that do actually run those guns, because that's the core problem we have here. Look at the background checks now. Look at the FBI numbers. 1% actually got denied. You want to know why? And people are shocked by that. Well, they say maybe they're not working. No, because law-abiding citizens are the ones that want to have a background check. And if you're someone that's going to break the law, the last thing you want to do is go give your fingerprints and go through a background check to get a gun.
Well,
so my point is this.
I agree with that, but I would say it's worse than that. I think 80,000 actually did lie on their background check.
Right, 80,000, but some of those...
barely any of them got prosecuted.
And that is exactly my point that you're making for me tonight.
I agree with you again. I agree with more law enforcement. So we are reaching some points of consensus here. Here's the sticking point where I come from on this, which is the assault weapons ban that was there before, and the fact that at the moment politicians are telling me there's no chance of getting it through again.
And that's my point.
Why are you so keen to maintain the availability of what many see as military-style assault weapons?
Because
for civilian population.
I don't see them as a military style. I see that as someone who doesn't understand a gun and fear-mongering. I know what a bad guy looks like with a gun. And it doesn't matter which gun he has at that point. And this is my other thing. You know the list that Dianne Feinstein came out with, the wall behind her of all those guns? Said, these are the ones. Why did they name those guns? They named them because they're hoping the next time something happens, they can go, we would have banned that exact gun. Their gun...
Isn't that responsible?
No, but this is my point. This is my point. The guns that were used against me, they weren't on their special list. So what happens to all those crimes? If you have a law, but hold on, if you have a law, this is my main core.
But how many guns are currently banned as it is? Do you know?
How many in this country? It depends on if you have a pistol grip on there. It depends on if you have a slack that
there are over 50 types of gun control already in existence in America. Do you support all those?
I don't know if I support all of them, and the reason why I say this is because I think some of them are repetitive. You look at Columbine. Columbine 22 gun laws specifically. More than 100 laws were broken, but more than 22 gun laws were broken there. If you add another one on there, Is it going to fix the problem? No. I think we have to.
How do you know?
Because I think if you're not prosecuting the guys that are committing these crimes, if you're not having a background for mental health, I mean, that's where I look at it and say, when they're dealing with mental health in Washington, D.C. right now, I'm all in favor of that because there is a huge, you want to talk about a loophole. It's not the loophole to buy guns on the black market that's a threat to this country. It's the loophole of the mentally insane people, which, by the way, the guy that pulled the trigger at me was declared by the court mentally incompetent to stand trial. Now, would that law fix it? Probably not. He probably would still shot at me. But I would rather have laws that actually have an impact right at this moment in time.
Well, I agree with what you said there again. So we agree about a number of things, actually. And the important...
You're coming around. I like this.
I haven't changed at all. I still feel very strongly that there are too many guns, period, and I'd like to see that reduced. But I certainly think that this kind of debate is constructive. It worries me when I hear that Vice President Biden thinks they may not even get background checks.
Well, but I think this is where Washington, if they're listening tonight, needs to pay attention. If Dianne Feinstein would stop being so extreme, and if some other people on the other side would maybe stop being so extreme, and we'd actually look at the core of the problem, which is not having the prosecution. You shoot somebody in this country today and you missed, you know what the average time you spend in jail is? 4.3 years. And that's if you're a second-time offender for assault with a deadly weapon, you spend 4.3 years in jail. You tell me if that's a threat to someone that is thinking about, I might shoot you. So you get rewarded for being a bad shot.
We are in a shocking situation here, Ben Ferguson, where you're actually beginning to make some sense. So I'm going to have to cut the interview off immediately because that wasn't the game plan whatsoever. Good to see you.
Good to see you.